Good afternoon, everybody. So happy to be with everyone today, and I want to take this time to thank you for joining Wolf and Company's presentation on HITRUST. My name is Mike Kenarellis. I'm a partner here at Wolf and Company, and I lead our healthcare IT audit and security practice, which HITRUST falls under. I'm joined by Austin Reese, who's a manager in the HITRUST group and leads our largest engagements. I think just to start, we all know that HITRUST is a journey. And we at Wolf and Company really think that we're a very strong partner for your HITRUST journey. We've been assessors for a long time now and have worked out a methodology that we think works, to be quite frank with you. And we deal with both providers, so hospitals or health systems that want to be HITRUST certified, or not certified, but certainly follow the HITRUST framework. And we deal with a lot of health tech and business associates that are mandated to be HITRUST certified. So thank you again, and we can go into our presentation today. Again, this is who we are, and any questions at all, you have our contact information, so you can feel free to reach out to myself or Austin. We're certainly not going to be able to cover a lot of things in depth. This is just a high-level overview. We keep our webinars to 20 minutes. We know you only have a certain amount of time in your day to dedicate. So we want to give you some information that's actionable, that will help you in your current HITRUST project. But certainly there are going to be more questions, and we're certainly not going to answer them all within this webinar. So please feel free to reach out to either Austin and I. Real quickly on Wolf and Company. Why Wolf? Why should you choose Wolf and Company to be your HITRUST partner? We've been around a long time, so we're not a fly-by-night firm. As you can see, we've been around for well over 100 years. We have about 350 professionals now. Our offices have really expanded even beyond this slide, certainly with COVID. Our firm is national at this point, and our HITRUST service line is certainly national. We have HITRUST clients in, I believe, 34 states. We also have HITRUST assessors in, I think, 10 states. So we're a national presence. We're a top 100 CPA firm. We've grown organically. We have not grown through acquisition. And I think we do things in a methodical manner, and certainly do things thoughtfully, and that really applies to our HITRUST service line. And the way we go about it, I think we do more hand-holding than most, and I think you'll start to see that as we walk through the presentation. Just a real quick snapshot. If you look at Wolf and Company's healthcare niche, as you can see, we're in most parts of the country. Our healthcare niche really is 50-50 down the middle, as you can see, between health tech or business associates and providers. So we deal with national integrated health systems, as well as business associates or health tech companies of all sizes, from pre-revenue to we just onboarded a new client at 27 billion. So I always tell people, Wolf is the right size firm for your HITRUST project. We're big enough where we can handle national organizations, but we're small enough where we can still pivot. I think we're competitive on price. We certainly won't be the low-cost provider. But we'll be very competitive, and we're going to make sure that HITRUST journey is really a collaborative effort between you and I, you and Wolf and Company. So we're going to Austin's going to take the reins shortly. We're going to talk about why HITRUST, we're just gonna kind of touch on the different types of high trust assessments. Where we really want to spend a majority of our time is really on the lessons learned. We've done a lot of high trust assessments, and certainly we've stubbed our toe occasionally, and we've seen there's definitely a recipe for a successful high trust engagement. So we'll touch on the lessons learned, and certainly touch on problem areas and common gaps, and we'll leave you with high trust resources and some key takeaways. And with that, I'll introduce everyone to Austin Reese.
All right, thanks, Mike. So I'm going to talk about high trust and kind of overall the assessments and how they work. So first off, the need for high trust. So we all know that the healthcare industry has been under attack recently. And this is due to basically the lack of a tailored framework for healthcare organizations, which is where HITRUST came in. The Office of Civil Rights saw an increase in regulatory scrutiny and an increased number of attacks within the healthcare industry. So the development of a framework to meet security guidelines and controls to protect healthcare organizations became vital. And then from this, HITRUST was created. So overall, HITRUST is, it's a prescriptive framework, and it does help to provide, scalability and reduce overall operational risk for individual practices, providers, and health tech companies. There's a clear path to remediation via, a scoring system. So, HITRUST shows scores from 0 to 100 based upon their controls, and then those controls are then, laid out across 19 domains. So throughout those domains, based upon where those scores stand, you can individually see which areas your organization might be lacking in and where you might need to sort of enhance your own controls to then better protect your organization. What are the types of high trust assessments? So there are two main types of high trust assessments. So it's the first basically certifiable framework for the healthcare industry. So I kind of mentioned there was 19 domains. 14 of those domains were based upon ISO 27001. It also incorporates aspects of HIPAA, high-tech, NIST 800-53, PCI DSS, the Federal Trade Commission, COBIT, and then there's various state laws. We mentioned here Texas and Massachusetts. And then the actual controls are adjustable based upon the organization's unique risk factors. So depending upon the size of your organization, depending on the complexity, how many employees there, you can get a vast variety of the controls that could be in scope for your assessment that you must meet in order to be certified. There are 3 implementation requirements for HITRUST. There's level 1, which are the base requirement level, and then there's level 2 and 3, which then build upon level 1 with other unique factors. These factors are based upon things like organizational, so like I said, the type, the size, the number of records held, your system, so how many systems are in scope, how many applications, whether or not it's accessible from the internet, if you're including things like mobile devices or wireless, and then regulatory factors. So HITRUST includes a number of various regulatory factors, for instance, things like PCI, FSMA, and other state laws.
Just something to mention real quick, Austin. It's our opinion on the regulatory factors. You want to be careful here. You want to make sure, remember, this is to show high trust certification. This is not to show PCI or any other regulatory certification. So we recommend clients go light on additional regulatory factors. You really don't want to make the scope so overbearing that you're just making it too tough of a task.
Exactly. So the first main type of high trust assessment is the R2 validated assessment. So previously this was referred to as just a regular high trust validated assessment. This was the bread and butter of what HITRUST came into the industry with. So this is their basic 2-year certification. It's based on the 5 levels of HITRUST control maturity. And this is spread across the 5 different scoring areas for HITRUST. So this is policy. Do you have a policy for the control? Procedure, is there a procedure that describes how the policy is being stated? Implemented, so are you implementing the control itself? And then there's 2 other areas, measured and managed. So these are optional, but these areas are basically, do you have a measurement to see how you are performing that control, and then are you managing that metric appropriately. The number of controls in scope, it depends on the scoping factor. So we kind of touched up on this in the last slide as well. So based upon your organizational, your technical factors, the regulatory factors that you choose to include in scope, your assessment could be anywhere between 200 or so controls all the way up to almost 1,000. With the 2-year certification, you also are required to perform an interim assessment after 1 year. That interim assessment is just 18 randomly selected controls from HITRUST, along with a review of your corrective action plans from that R2 validated assessment. It's basically just a check-in audit to make sure that you're still meeting what the HITRUST controls are requiring of you. And then there are controls that can be inherited from service providers that hold a HITRUST certification. So say your environment is strictly hosted within Amazon Web Services. Well, in that case, physical controls wouldn't really apply to you. Then those physical security controls could then be inherited from AWS's HITRUST certification. These are the scoring weights for each one of the control maturity implementation areas for HITRUST. So you'll see that implementation is weighted the highest. So actually having those controls in place is the most important. However, to maintain to actually become certified within HITRUST, you do have to maintain a policy and a process at a very minimum to meet the scoring requirements to become HITRUST certified.
And one thing we always tell all of our prospects and certainly clients when we're working with them, process, although it's 20%, really is the area that's going to trip a lot of people up. HITRUST is a major paper exercise. Process is really written procedural statements, and that's where most of Wolf's clients have to spend a good majority of their time during the readiness assessment and to the run-up of the validated assessment on making sure procedural statements are up to snuff. And that's where Wolf and Company, I think, really shines and really kind of we really go beyond our competitors and how we can do some hand-holding on the written procedural statements to really help out the organizations we work with.
Yep, and we'll go into that even further within the lesson learned section of this webinar. The final type of HITRUST assessment is the I1 validated assessment. So this is a 1-year certification, and it's based strictly on implementation of the control. So no policy, no procedure, no measured or managed. There is a set number of controls and scopes, so only 219, and that's for all organizations. There's no scaling based upon scoping factors or sizes or organizational factors for each organization. Additionally, the carve-out method is used. So, for instance, if you're using Amazon Web Services and physical controls once again aren't in scope for you, they would simply be carved out under an I1 assessment. There wouldn't be an inheritance involved. The I1 validated assessment must use the current version of the CSF, where with the R2 you can use prior versions that are still being supported by HITRUST. And then the average domain score to become certified is a bit higher. It's at an 83 for every domain, whereas the R2 it's only around a 69.
Something really critical to mention about the I1, Austin, I believe, is it is an easier lift. So it takes that paper exercise we just mentioned off the table. But it is critical if you're being asked for HITRUST certification, make sure you're communicating with your business partners that are asking for it before you choose, because a lot of people would gravitate to the I1 because it's an easier lift, but you have to make sure that the people asking for it would accept an I1 versus an R2. So make sure that you're working with your business partners that are asking for HITRUST certification regarding what report you can start with.
Right. Whereas an I1 would be more comparable to, say, a SOC 2 report, where it's every year you're undergoing this assessment, where if you're kind of looking to take the next step or you're being asked to go a little bit above and beyond than just a standard SOC 2, that's where the R2 might be more appropriate. So we're going to be moving on now towards our lessons learned based upon our experience with HITRUST and things that we learned by going through countless assessments with our clients. So the first lessons learned would be organizational buy-in. So HITRUST is generally it's a difficult assessment to go through and a difficult certification to get. So it's extremely important to kind of get that buy-in from the top down within every organization. Having a higher level executive, really pushing and supporting the HITRUST approach within your organization is extremely vital to make sure that you have the appropriate resources dedicated to, build the controls within the environment. So things like writing policies and procedures, or making sure that you're purchasing appropriate tools to meet what controls are asking for that are in scope for your assessment, or being able to develop a business continuity plan, or having someone available to build out those internal governance processes to really mature your organization to make sure that you can have and meet what HITRUST is looking for with those controls. The second main thing is scoping. So one of the main things that we go through with all of our clients is first a very large and appropriate scoping workshop. And the main key is, we want to know what's in scope and, more importantly, what's out of scope. Because with HITRUST, you are allowed to choose your own scope to what you deem to be appropriate for your assessment, but also, what your clients will accept as the scope for your assessment. So it is really important to key in on those areas where, sensitive data is being stored or transmitted to and from, but also making sure that, you can draw a line to where the environment ends. There's a lot of times where people will start the process of, determining the scope of their assessment, and then they'll go, okay, well, this is also in scope, and this could also be in scope, and well, maybe we should include this as well. And next thing you know, your entire environment, your entire network is in scope. And that's basically what you want to prevent, because then it becomes an overwhelming and difficult process to then become certified. So understanding, what exactly your scope will be and the boundaries around it is vital to, getting certified and going through that process. The third point would be HITRUST is a massive paper exercise. So, we kind of touched upon policy and procedure. Being able to write those policies and having the time and the resources applied to write those policies and procedures is extremely important to make sure that you are covering exactly what needs to be in there, first off, and having a great HITRUST assessor to tell you what's going to be in those policies and procedures is, definitely part of this. But being able to, have the people and the appropriate, timelines for writing and developing those policies and procedures is, vital to get to your certification. And then preparing for success. So you want to make sure that, as I mentioned, you're pairing with the appropriate HITRUST assessor to help prepare you, going through a readiness assessment for your HITRUST, to make sure that you are aware of the controls that are going to be in scope, and the things that you need to do and meet in order to, move towards certification are extremely important. And then lastly, problem areas and common gaps that we see. So we'll cover that as we get to that slide. All right, so first off, organizational buy-in. So I kind of spoke to this earlier. You need it, right? You need board and senior level, you need board and senior leadership support. So, HITRUST is not a short-term, start from scratch and get certified within, a month. This is a possible year to multi-year initiative if you're starting from scratch. So you need to have that buy-in and that support from the top in order to make sure that they're also aware that there is no quick fix to HITRUST. You need to take the time and have the effort and the resources applied to make sure that you can adopt and implement controls appropriately.
I don't want to be too. I don't want to be too dramatic. But if you don't have organizational buy-in, you'll fail. It's as simple as that.
There also is the need for spending. Most organizations, if they come from, not having previously undergone an assessment or an audit before, and they want to go straight to HITRUST, there will be a need for additional spending to meet what the HITRUST controls are looking for. So that could be, hiring an organization to help develop a business continuity plan for you, to be able to implement a SIM to store and process and review your event logs, to design tools or change processes and adapt and hire additional staff to make sure that you're meeting what those controls are looking for. These things can add up pretty quickly. So making sure that you have senior leadership that is aware that these things are going to happen and that can set aside the budget to make sure that you meet HITRUST is extremely important. The next thing to note is that internal audit should also be the lead on these. So having someone internal that is aware of HITRUST, possibly has undergone their certification process and gotten the training required from HITRUST is definitely a great first step. because, having a great assessor is one thing, but also having someone internal to you to kind of own and lead HITRUST, and to be able to, walk through the steps and understand how things work with the scoring and the controls, and being able to use the MyCSF GRC tool that HITRUST requires all assessments use, is definitely, it makes things easier for the organization and also for the assessors. Including people from all business lines is also equally important, because you want to make sure that, the controls don't just apply to IT, right? There are controls that apply to your development teams, that apply to your HR department, to your hiring, to your onboarding, to your incident response. There's various areas inside. It's not, I know HITRUST isn't siloed off to just one part of your organization. It can be all encompassing. So it is important to make sure that you have people included from all those business lines.
Right.
And then lastly, having a HITRUST working group. So similar to having like an IT steering committee or a change control board, having a HITRUST working group to make sure that the organization is aware of, remediation that's ongoing for HITRUST controls, or what tools need to be implemented, and having that buy-in from those organizational leaderships that are included in that working group to be able to, move forward the processes that are required to hit that finish line of being HITRUST certified.
I know we're running a little short on time, so maybe we can.
Yep, I touched on scoping, a good amount previously, so I'll just kind of reiterate, making sure that the boundaries of your environment. It's up to you, but start small and work your way up, making sure that you're covering what your clients are looking for, making sure that you're only getting certified what is required within your environment, and then with our provider clients, starting with the EHR core as your main in-scope environment. And then if you want to move to other systems or, areas within your organization to get certified, doing so, iteratively. I spoke of the paper exercise that HITRUST is involved with the policy and the procedure requirements. So starting with your current HIPAA policies will not be HITRUST compliant. HITRUST is very granular and specific language that are in their controls and their illustrative procedures that they like to see within their policies and within their procedures. So making sure that you're aware that your current policy set won't cut it for what HITRUST is looking for. And then noting that your procedural statements need to be very detailed. They need to include the who, the what, the how, the what, the how often are being done to meet each one of those HITRUST controls. Preparing for success for HITRUST. So making sure that you define your scope early and that you're prepared to pivot in case something arises that you might need to add into your assessment, or your scope changes and more controls are involved and you need to add various resources to make sure you're doing those things. Being able to be flexible with that, that helps. Spending your time where it counts. So policy and process, they tend to take a lot more time than most organizations estimate. So having the time, the resources to do those things, to have the policy writer available, to have someone available to develop procedures, then also implement controls. Having an internal project manager or a dedicated team. I kind of spoke of this before, but having someone that knows HITRUST inside your organization and can be able to be a liaison between yourselves and your assessors to help.
I would say, Austin, that's really the key. That I think if you looked at everything we've done in HITRUST, the companies it's never easy, but the companies that do it the best, they have a dedicated project manager or even a committee where people that are invested, that are going to be dealing with us on a day-to-day basis. And I think, scoping obviously is going to be a key factor, but I think, if people are looking at these issues, I think it is going to prepare you for success. And I want to leave what I want to leave folks with is that, for folks that watch the webinar and as a value add to you, we're prepared to offer a 60-minute workshop with members of our HITRUST team to really help you kind of, whether you use Wolf & Company or not. That's really the offer, giving 60 minutes of our expertise and helping you kind of what's going to make for a good readiness assessment. What are the key scoping things you need to do? And certainly look at the project in totality and really prep you for success. So again, thank you, everyone. My name's Mike Kenarellis. I'm the head of the Healthcare IT Audit and Cyber Group. And please reach out to me with any questions. And Austin?
And my name is Austin Reese. I'm a manager with our IT and healthcare assurance group. Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate the time.